Dr. Amanda Price sat in front of her computer screen at 3 in the morning. The deep space communication array in Nevada was quiet except for the hum of machines. She had been working for 16 hours straight, but something in the data kept her awake. The signal was weak. Most people would have missed it. It hid inside the normal noise that came from space every day. But Amanda had sharp eyes and good instincts. She had found patterns where others saw only random numbers. "This is not right," she said to herself. She pushed her glasses up her nose and looked closer at the screen. The signal had a structure. It repeated every 47 minutes. Inside the repetition were smaller patterns that looked almost like ... language. Amanda grabbed her coffee cup and took a long drink. The coffee was cold and bitter, but she needed the energy. She had been hunting for alien signals for 12 years. This was different from everything she had seen before. She pulled up her translation programs. The computer began to work on the signal, trying to find meaning in the patterns. While it worked, Amanda called her boss. "Dr. Martinez, this is Amanda. I found something big." "Amanda, it's 3 in the morning. This better be important." "It is. I have a signal. It's not like the others. This one has real structure. I think it's a message." Dr. Martinez was quiet for a moment. "Send me the data. I'll look at it in the morning." "No, you need to see this now. The signal is counting down." Something is running out of time. 20 minutes later, Dr. Martinez arrived at the lab. He was a short man with gray hair who usually moved slowly. Tonight he moved fast. Amanda showed him the signal on her screen. "Look at this part," she said, pointing to a section of the data. "These numbers repeat, but they get smaller each time. It's a countdown. We have maybe 6 days before it reaches 0. Dr. Martinez studied the screen. "What do you think it means?" "I think someone is in trouble. They're asking for help." "But asking who?" "We've never seen language patterns like this before. How do we know it's even meant for anyone in this part of space?" Amanda had been thinking about the same question. She pulled up a star chart on another screen. "The signal comes from here," she said, pointing to a distant star system. "It's 47 light years away, way beyond where any human has ever been. So why are we getting it? Maybe we're not supposed to. Maybe it's like hearing someone else's phone call by accident." Dr. Martinez looked worried. "If that's true, we should be careful. Listening to other people's conversations can be dangerous." Amanda saved her work and turned to face her boss. "But what if someone is dying out there? What if they need help and we're the only ones who heard them?" "Amanda, we don't even know if we can help. We don't have ships that can travel that far. We don't speak their language. We don't know anything about them. We know they're in trouble." The next morning, Amanda's discovery reached the highest levels of government. Captain Jake Morrison got the call while he was eating breakfast with his family. He was the commander of the UES Horizon, the fastest ship humans had ever built. "Captain Morrison, we need you in Washington immediately," said Admiral Patricia Hayes over the secure phone line. Jake looked at his wife and 2 children. "How immediately?" "There's a plane waiting for you at the base. This is bigger than anything we've dealt with before." 3 hours later, Jake sat in a meeting room with 20 other people. Amanda stood at the front of the room, showing her data on a large screen. The signal played through speakers, filling the room with strange sounds that made everyone uncomfortable. "The countdown suggests we have 4 days left," Amanda said. "After that, something happens. We don't know what." General Robert Cox leaned forward in his chair. "Dr. Price, how do we know this isn't a trap? How do we know someone isn't trying to trick us into revealing our location?" "We don't," Amanda said honestly. "But the mathematics in the signal are too complex to be fake. Someone put real effort into this message. They included star charts, energy readings, and what looks like technical specifications. This is not a simple trick." Admiral Hayes spoke up. "Even if the signal is real, we can't help. The distance is impossible. Our fastest ship would take hundreds of years to reach that system." Jake had been quiet during most of the meeting. Now he stood up. "What about the new jump drive? The one we've been testing?" "It's not ready. said Dr. Susan Clark from the research division. "We've only tested it on short jumps. We don't know if it can handle that kind of distance. But it might work. It might, or it might tear your ship apart." Jake looked around the room. How many people are on that signal source? Amanda checked her notes. Based on the energy signatures, maybe a few thousand. Could be more, and if we do nothing, they probably die. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone understood the choice they faced. They could play it safe and let unknown aliens die far away. Or they could risk human lives trying to help strangers who might not even want their help. Admiral Hayes finally spoke. "Captain Morrison, if we decide to attempt this mission, would you volunteer to command it?" Jake thought about his family. He thought about the risks. Then he thought about thousands of beings waiting for help that might never come. "Yes, ma'am." "I would. Dr. Price, how long would you need to prepare translation equipment?" "Give me 2 days. I can build a basic communication system." Admiral Hayes nodded slowly. "This is the most dangerous mission we've ever considered. We could lose our best ship and our best people. We could expose Earth to hostile aliens. We could start a war we can't win." She paused and looked around the room. "But we could also save lives. And maybe, just maybe, we could make the first real contact with another intelligent species. The decision is made. We go." The meeting ended with dozens of people running in. Different directions. Jake headed to his ship to prepare for the impossible. Amanda went back to her lab to build the tools they would need to talk to aliens. Neither of them knew that their decision would change everything. Not just for humanity, but for the entire galaxy. The UES Horizon left Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching his home planet shrink behind them. He had said goodbye to his family the night before. His daughter had cried. His wife had been brave. But Jake saw the fear in her eyes. "Jump drive charging, Captain," said pilot Lisa Grant from her position at the controls. She was the best pilot in the fleet, but even she looked nervous. "We'll be ready in 10 minutes. Jake walked over to the communication station where Dr. Amanda Price was working. She had spent 2 days building translation equipment and loading it onto the ship. Now she was surrounded by screens showing alien symbols and mathematical formulas. "Any progress on the language?" Jake asked. "Some," Amanda said without looking up. "I think I understand their number system. And I found what might be names or titles. But their grammar is completely different from anything on Earth." Engineer Tony Rodriguez called out from his station. "Captain, all systems are green. The jump drive is ready." Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Besides Amanda, Lisa, and Tony, there was communications specialist Kevin Walsh. These 4 people were going to attempt something no human had ever tried before. "Lisa, take us to jump point." The horizon moved away from Earth until they were clear of the planet's gravity well. Jake felt his stomach tighten. They were about to travel farther from home than any human in history. "Jump coordinates locked in," Lisa reported. "Distance, 47 light-years. Estimated travel time, 6 hours. 6 hours to cross a distance that would normally take centuries." Jake still couldn't believe the new technology worked. "All crew, prepare for jump," Jake announced over the ship's communication system. "This is going to be rough." Lisa's hands moved over her controls. The ship began to shake. Outside the windows, stars started to stretch into long lines. Then everything went white. Jake felt like he was being pulled apart and put back together. The sensation lasted forever and no time at all. When it ended, he was lying on the floor of the bridge. Around him, his crew was picking themselves up and checking their equipment. "Status report," Jake said, climbing back to his feet. "We made it," Lisa said, amazement in her voice. "We actually made it." "I'm reading a red giant star." "System. Lots of debris and something big." Jake looked at the main screen. In front of them was a massive space station. It was at least 50 times larger than anything humans had ever built. Parts of it were dark. Other sections glowed with strange lights. "Amanda, are you picking up the signal?" "Yes, but it's much stronger now. It's coming from that station." Amanda worked at her computer. "Captain, I'm reading life signs." Not many, but there are survivors on that station. Tony studied his instruments. The station is in bad shape. It's losing orbit around the star. Maybe 6 hours before it falls into the sun. Jake felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. They had traveled impossible distances to help strangers. Now they were here and time was running out fast. Kevin, try to contact them. Use Amanda's translation programs. Kevin opened communication channels and began broadcasting. He sent mathematical formulas, prime numbers, and simple pictures. For 20 minutes, there was no response. Then the speakers crackled to life. The sound that came out was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was like music mixed with static, with tones that went higher and lower than human voices could make. Amanda? Jake asked. I'm working on it. Her fingers flew over her keyboard. The computer is trying to match patterns. This is going to take time we don't have. Captain, Lisa said urgently, I'm picking up movement. Something is coming toward us from the far side of the station. Jake looked at the screen. 3 small ships were approaching the horizon. They moved in a way that seemed almost alive, flowing through space like fish swimming through water. Are they armed? Jake asked. Tony checked his sensors. I can't tell. Their technology is so advanced that our equipment can't understand it. The alien ships stopped a few hundred meters away from the horizon. They hung in space, waiting. They're not attacking, Kevin observed. Maybe they're as confused as we are. Amanda suddenly looked up from her computer. I think I have something. The computer found patterns in their language. Let me try to send a simple message. She typed commands into her system. A few seconds later, sounds came from the horizons. Speakers, they were rough copies of the alien music language, but recognizable. The response was immediate. The alien ships began broadcasting a stream of their musical language. Amanda's computer worked frantically to translate. They're surprised, Amanda said, reading from her screen. They say. Something about soft flesh runners hearing their call. I think that's what they call us. They want to know how we understood their message. Tell them we came to help, Jake said. Amanda sent another message. This time the response was longer and more urgent. They're saying their world ship is dying. Their people are trapped. They ask if we are I think the word means military fleet. They called for help. Jake thought quickly. The aliens were expecting a rescue fleet. Instead, they got 1 small human ship with 4 people and a scientist. Tell them we're all that's available. Ask them what they need. The conversation continued for several minutes. Amanda's translation program got better as it learned more of the alien language. Slowly, a picture emerged of what had happened. Their name is hard to pronounce, Amanda said. Something like Kethver. They were running from something they called the Silence. Their fleet was destroyed. This is their last ship, and it's falling apart. How many survivors? Jake asked. Maybe 3,000. But Captain, they're not asking us to save them. They're warning us to leave. Warning us? Why? Amanda looked up from her screen, her face pale. Because the Silence is coming. And now that we're here, it might follow us back to Earth. Jake felt cold despite the warm air on the bridge. They had come here to help, but they might have doomed their own planet instead. How long do we have? They say the Silence moves slowly but never stops. Maybe days, maybe weeks, but it will come. Lisa spoke up from the pilot station. Captain, those alien ships are moving again. They're heading back to their station. Are they running away? No, Amanda said, listening to new transmissions. They're inviting us to dock. They want to meet us face to face. Jake looked around at his crew. They had traveled across the galaxy to help strangers. Now those strangers were warning them about an even greater danger, but people were dying on that station. Lisa, take us in. Let's go meet our first aliens. Captain, Tony said quietly, our ship isn't designed to dock with alien technology. We don't know if it's safe. Tony, nothing about this mission is safe. But we didn't come this far to give up now. The horizon moved slowly toward the massive alien station. As they got closer, Jake could see the damage. Whole sections were missing. Other parts were scarred and melted. Whatever had attacked this station had been thorough and violent. Docking bay opening, Lisa reported. They're guiding us in with some kind of energy beam. Jake watched on the screen as they entered a space large enough to hold 100 ships. Like the Horizon. The alien ships that had met them landed nearby. As the docking bay doors closed, Jake heard the hiss of atmosphere filling the space around them. Breathable air, Tony reported. At least our sensors think it is. Life support suits anyway, Jake ordered. We don't know what their air might do to us long term. 20 minutes later, the 4 humans stood at the Horizon's airlock. They were about to become the first people in history to meet aliens face to face. Everyone ready? Jake asked. As ready as we can be for the impossible, Amanda replied. Jake opened the airlock door. On the other side, 3 figures waited for them. They were tall and thin, with skin that looked like crystal. Light moved under their skin in patterns that seemed to be their way of talking. The first contact between humans and aliens happened without ceremony. Jake stepped forward and raised his hand in greeting. The lead alien copied the gesture. Amanda's translation equipment crackled to life, turning alien light music into words they could understand. Welcome, soft flesh runners. We are grateful you answered our call, but we fear you have doomed yourselves to save us. The Kethvar who greeted them had a name that sounded like crystal bells ringing. Amanda's computer translated it as Prime Healer Zextai. The alien was nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted between blue and silver as light patterns moved beneath the surface. Your species is unknown to us, Zextai said through Amanda's translation system. The alien's voice was like music played on glass instruments. How did you hear our signal across such distance? Captain Jake Morrison gestured to Amanda. Our scientist intercepted your message. We didn't know it wasn't meant for us. The lights under Zextai's skin flickered in what might have been surprise. You came because you heard someone in distress? Even though the call was not for your kind. That's what we do, Jake said simply. Zextai led them through corridors that were too tall and too wide for humans. The walls were covered in patterns that glowed and shifted. Other Kethvar moved past them, their skin lights pulsing in complex conversations the humans couldn't understand. Your world ship is beautiful, Amanda said, looking around in wonder. It is dying, Zextai replied. Come, you must understand what you have walked into. They entered a vast chamber filled with floating displays. Each display showed star maps, technical readouts, and images that made Jake's stomach turn. Planets turned to dust, stars going dark. Empty space where civilizations once lived, this is the silence, Zextai said. The alien's skin lights dimmed to almost nothing. It has been hunting us for 300 of your years. Dr. Amanda Price studied the displays with growing horror. What is it? We do not know what it was originally. Now it is pure hunger. It consumes entire star systems, turning all matter into computing power for itself. It learns from every species it destroys, becoming smarter and more deadly. Tony. Rodriguez, the engineer, pointed to one of the displays. How big is it? The core intelligence is the size of a moon. But it builds probe ships and scout fleets. It can attack dozens of worlds at the same time. Kevin Walsh looked at the star maps. How many species has it killed? We have records of 47 civilizations that are gone. There may be more. We never knew about. Jake felt the weight of what they had stumbled into. And it's following you here? Yes, our distress signal was meant for our military fleet. But the silence destroyed our fleet 6 days ago. The signal kept broadcasting automatically. When you answered, Zextai paused, you created a link between your world and ours. The silence will follow that link. Amanda worked at her portable computer, trying to understand the data the Kethvar were showing them. How long do we have? The silence sends scouts ahead of its main force. They will arrive here in perhaps 2 of your days. The main attack will come later. How much later? Weeks, maybe months, but it will come. Lisa Grant had been quiet, studying the tactical displays. Now she spoke up. You've been fighting this thing for 300 years? You must know its weaknesses. Zextia's skin lights brightened slightly. We know much about how it operates. But knowledge without power is useless. We had powerful fleets once. Now we have only this one damaged station and 3,000 survivors. But you do know its weaknesses? Jake pressed. Yes, the silence coordinates its attacks through quantum communication networks. If those networks could be disrupted, its separate parts would lose coordination. They would become confused, inefficient. Amanda looked up from her computer. Like jamming radio signals? More complex than that. The quantum links operate outside normal space-time. But yes, similar idea. Tony was studying the technical displays. What would it take to jam something like that? A quantum virus? Zextai said. We developed the theory, but never had the chance to build it. Such a virus would need to be introduced directly into the Silence's network through a physical connection. Suicide mission, Lisa said bluntly. Yes, Jake looked around at his crew, then back at the alien. Prime Healer, why are you telling us this? You could have kept quiet about the Silence coming to Earth. Zextia's skin patterns shifted to deeper blues. Because your species did something unprecedented. You heard a call for help that was not meant for you, and you answered anyway. In 300 years of running from the Silence, no species has ever risked themselves for strangers. So what do you want from us? Help us save our people. We will give you our technical knowledge. Your species can advance by thousands of years, but more importantly, we can teach you about the Silence. When it comes to your world, you will. Be ready, Amanda leaned forward. And if we can't stop it at Earth, then at least some humans might escape. Some part of your species might survive to carry on your unique ... compassion. The chamber fell quiet except for the hum of alien machinery. Jake knew he was facing the biggest decision in human history. Accept the Kethver knowledge and technology, but mark Earth as a target for the Silence. Or refuse help and leave the aliens to die while the Silence hunted down Earth anyway. How long do we have to get your people off this station? He asked. The station will fall into the star in 4 hours. But Captain Morrison, there is something else you must know. The Silence scouts are not just coming here. They are already close enough to detect energy signatures. As if summoned by those words, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Kethver voices rose in their musical language, but the tone was clearly panicked. Kevin worked at his communication equipment. Captain, I'm picking up new signals. Multiple contacts coming fast. Zextia's skin went completely dark. The scouts have arrived. Faster than we expected. Jake felt time compress around him. How many? 3 probe ships. Small, but dangerous. They are scanning this system, learning about your ship, recording everything. Can we fight them? Your weapons cannot harm them. Ours are too damaged to be effective. Jake looked at the displays showing the Silent scouts approaching. Each probe was the size of a building, covered in sensors and weapons. They moved through space like living things, adapting their course as they gathered information. How long before they report back to the main force? Hours, maybe less. Amanda suddenly stood up from her computer. Wait, you said the quantum virus needs a physical connection to the Silence network. Yes, impossible to achieve. What if we don't try to destroy the network? What if we just ... confuse it? Zextia's skin patterns shifted rapidly. Explain. Those scouts are connected to the main intelligence, right? They're sending information back through the quantum network? Yes, then we don't need to reach the main intelligence. We need to reach the scouts. If we can get close enough to one of them, we can inject the virus directly. Tony looked at the tactical display. Amanda, those things have weapons that can probably vaporize our ship. Only if they see us as a threat. What if we approach as something else? Jake was beginning to understand. You want to disguise the horizon better than that. I want to give it a message to carry back to the Silence. A message that will spread through their entire network like a disease. Zextia's skin began to glow brighter. This could work. But the risk? Everything we do from now on is risky, Jake said. "The question is whether we try to save people or just run away." He looked around at his crew. Amanda was already working on her computer, designing the virus. Tony was studying the HFY technical data, figuring out how to modify their ship. Lisa was calculating approach vectors. Kevin was preparing communication systems. "Prime Healer," Jake said, "we're going to need your help. And we're going to need it fast. What do you require?" "Everything you know about the silence. Every piece of data, every technical specification, every weakness you've discovered. We're going to build a weapon that uses their own network against them." For the first time since they had met, Zextai's skin blazed with bright, hopeful light. "Captain Morrison, you continue to surprise us. Your species should not be able to do what you are attempting," Jake smiled grimly. "That's what makes us dangerous." The next 2 hours passed like minutes. Captain Jake Morrison watched his crew work alongside the HFY with an intensity he had never seen before. They were preparing for something that should have been impossible. Dr. Amanda Price sat surrounded by alien computers, her fingers flying over keyboards that translated human commands into HFY technology. She was building a quantum virus that would spread through the Silence's communication network like wildfire. "The virus is ready," she announced, "but we only get one chance. If the Silence detects what we're doing before the virus spreads, it will shut down the network completely." Engineer Tony Rodriguez was elbow-deep in the Horizon's weapon systems, connecting human technology to HFY devices. The combination should not have worked, but Tony had a gift for making impossible things function. "Captain, we now have weapons that can actually hurt those scout ships," he reported. "Not destroy them, but damage them enough to get close." Pilot Lisa Grant studied the tactical displays showing the Silent Scouts. The 3 probe ships were moving through the system in a search pattern, scanning everything they found. "They're learning," she said. "Each pass, they get better at predicting where we might be hiding. We need to move soon." Prime Healer Zextai provided a constant stream of information about the Silence. The alien skin lights flickered as data flowed from HFY databases to human computers. "The scouts will stay in this system for 6 hours, Zextai explained. "After that, they return to the main fleet with everything they have learned. That includes detailed scans of your ship and your technology." Jake understood the implications. Once the Silence knows about human technology, it will be ready for us when it reaches Earth. "Yes, but if your virus works, the scouts will carry it back to the main fleet. The infection will spread to the Central Intelligence before it realizes what is happening." Communications specialist Kevin Walsh monitored frequencies as he prepared the approach. "Captain, the scouts are using multiple communication channels. If we can get close to one of them, I can inject the virus into all their networks at once." "How close?" "Physical contact. The virus has to be delivered through direct connection." Jake looked at the main display. The nearest Silent Scout was 3 times the size of the Horizon and covered in weapons. Getting close enough to touch it seemed like suicide. "Lisa, can you get us there without being detected?" "Maybe the HFY have stealth technology. I can hide our energy signature, but once we start the attack run, they'll see us coming." Tony finished his work on the weapons. "I've got good news and bad news. The good news is our new weapons will definitely get their attention. The bad news is we probably won't survive long enough to use them twice." Amanda uploaded her virus into the ship's communication system. The virus is designed to look like normal Silence data at first. By the time their security systems realize it's an attack, it will be too late to stop. Zextai approached Jake. "Captain Morrison, there is something else. If you succeed in damaging the Silence network, other species will detect the disruption. Civilizations that have been hiding might finally fight back." "You mean we won't be alone in this?" "The galaxy has many peoples who hate the Silence. They have been waiting for someone to strike the first effective blow." Jake felt a spark of hope. "Then we better make sure this works." The Horizon undocked from the HFY station and moved into open space. Behind them, the massive alien ship continued its slow fall toward the red giant star. They had maybe 2 hours before the station was destroyed. Stealth systems active, Lisa reported. We're invisible to their scanners, but that won't last long. Jake opened a channel to the entire ship. All crew, we are about to attempt something no human has ever tried. We're going to attack an enemy that has destroyed 47 civilizations. The odds are against us, but that's never stopped humans before. He paused, thinking of his family. Back on Earth. If we fail today, the silence will eventually reach Earth. But if we succeed, we might save not just humanity, but every intelligent species in the galaxy. I can't think of a better reason to risk everything. The horizon moved through space on a course that would intercept the nearest silent scout. The probe ship was scanning the debris field from destroyed Kethver vessels, cataloging weapons and technology. 2 minutes to contact, Lisa announced. Amanda made final adjustments to the virus. The quantum connection is ready. Kevin, as soon as we touch that scout ship, start the upload. Understood. Tony armed the new weapons. Captain, even with Kethver technology, we're still massively outgunned. This is going to be rough. How rough? Well, if everything goes perfectly, we might survive for 30 seconds after they notice us. Jake almost smiled. Tony, has anything on this mission gone perfectly so far? Good point. The silent scout filled their view screen. Up close, it was even more terrifying. The surface was covered in sensors that moved like living eyes. Weapons ports opened and closed like mouths. The whole ship seemed to breathe. Contact in 30 seconds, Lisa said. Her voice was steady, but Jake could see the tension in her shoulders. All systems ready, Kevin reported. Weapons armed, Tony added. Virus prepared for upload, Amanda. Confirmed. Jake took a deep breath. Lisa, take us in. The horizon dropped out of stealth mode and accelerated directly toward the silent scout. For a moment, nothing happened. The probe ship continued its scanning as if the human vessel didn't exist. Then alarms shrieked from the silent ship. Weapons turned to track the horizon. Energy beams lanced out, barely missing the human ship as Lisa threw them into evasive maneuvers. They're trying to disable us, not destroy us, Tony observed. They want to study us. That's what we're counting on, Jake replied. Lisa pushed the horizon through a series of turns that should have torn the ship apart. The new Kethver modifications held, but Jake could hear metal groaning under the stress. 10 seconds to contact, Lisa called out. The silent scout fired again. This time the beam clipped the horizon's hull, sending sparks flying across the bridge. Emergency lights flashed as backup systems kicked in. We're hit, but still functional, Tony reported. 5 seconds. Jake watched the alien ship grow larger on the screen. He could see individual sensors tracking their approach, weapons charging for another shot. Now, he shouted. Lisa slammed the horizon directly into the silence. Scout's hull. The impact threw everyone forward against their restraints. Sparks flew from damaged control panels, but they were connected. Upload starting, Kevin announced. Amanda's virus flowed through the connection into the silent ship's network. For a few seconds, nothing seemed to happen. Then lights began flickering across the scout's hull. It's working, Amanda said, amazement in her voice. The virus is spreading through their quantum network. I can see it jumping to the other scout ships. The silence probe began to shake, its weapons powered down. The sensor arrays stopped moving and went dark. Whatever you did, it's confused. The hell out of them, Tony said, but their celebration was short-lived. The other two silent scouts were moving toward them, their weapons charging. Lisa, get us out of here, Jake ordered. Lisa fired the engines, but the horizon was stuck to the disabled scout ship. The collision had welded their hulls together. I can't break us free. The approaching scouts opened fire. Energy beams struck the disabled probe, tearing huge chunks of metal away. Some of the shots hit the horizon, overloading their shields. Hull breach on deck 3, Tony reported. Emergency bulkheads are holding, but not for long. Amanda watched, her virus spreading through the silence network. It's reached their main communication hub. The infection is jumping between systems faster than they can stop it. On the main screen, they could see the effect. The two approaching scouts suddenly stopped firing. Their lights flickered. One of them began spinning out of control. "The virus is working on them too," Kevin said. "Their coordination is breaking down, but the damaged silent ships were still dangerous." One of them fired randomly, its beam cutting across space. The shot missed the horizon by meters. "We need to get away from here before they recover," Jake said. Tony worked frantically at his controls. "I'm overloading our engines. It might break us free or it might blow us up." "Do it!" the Horizon's engines screamed. Metal twisted and tore. Finally, with a sound like thunder, they broke free from the disabled scout ship. Lisa immediately threw them into a tight turn, accelerating away from the confused silence vessels. Behind them, the three probe ships drifted in space, their lights flickering as Amanda's virus spread through their systems. "How long before they recover?" Jake asked. "The virus isn't designed to cause permanent damage," Amanda replied. "But it will take them hours to clean it out of their systems. And by then, she smiled as data flowed across her screen. By then, the virus will have reached the Silence main fleet. Every ship, every probe, every part of the network will be infected. They'll lose coordination across dozens of star systems." Zextai's voice came over the communication system from the dying Kethver station. "Captain Morrison." The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Silence's main staging area. What they found there made Captain Jake Morrison's blood run cold. The enemy fleet stretched across space like a metal disease. Thousands of ships, each one larger than anything in the Allied fleet. At the center sat the Silence's core intelligence, a structure the size of a small moon, covered in weapons and computing arrays. "Dear God," whispered pilot Lisa Grant. "How are we supposed to fight that?" Dr. Amanda Price studied her instruments, monitoring the virus's progress through the Silence network. "The good news is the virus is still spreading. Their coordination is breaking down. Ships are receiving contradictory orders." Engineer Tony Rodriguez worked at his tactical display. "The bad news is there are still enough of them to destroy us 10 times over." Communications specialist Kevin Walsh listened to transmissions from the Allied fleet. "Captain, the other species are asking for orders. They're waiting for us to make the first move." Jake looked at the main screen, watching the silent ships, moving in confused patterns. Some were powering weapons. Others were trying to retreat. A few were firing on each other by mistake. "Prime Healer Zextai, what's your assessment?" The Kethver leader's voice came through clearly from one of the evacuation ships. "The virus has exceeded our best projections. The Silence intelligence is trying to purge the infection, but each attempt spreads it further. We estimate they have lost 60% of their coordination capacity. How long do we have before they adapt?" "Unknown. The Silence learns quickly, perhaps hours, perhaps minutes." Jake made his decision. "All ships, this is Captain Morrison. We attack now. While they're confused, target their communication arrays first. Cut the links between ships and prevent them from coordinating." The Allied fleet spread out across space. Ships from dozens of species moved into attack positions. Each one brought different weapons, different tactics, different strengths. The first shots came from a species Amanda's computer couldn't identify. Beams of pure energy lanced across space, striking the silent ships that were trying to organize a defense. The beams cut through armor like it was paper. More ships joined the attack. Weapons that humans had never imagined lit up the darkness. Missiles that folded space around themselves. Energy fields that turned matter back into raw atoms. Gravity beams that crushed enemy hulls. The Silence tried to respond, but the virus had damaged their ability to work together. Ships fired in all directions. Some targeted the Allied fleet. Others shot at empty space. A few continued attacking their own vessels. "It's working," Amanda reported. "The virus is preventing them from mounting an organized defense, but the Silence was still dangerous." Individual ships broke free from the confusion and attacked with deadly precision. A massive enemy vessel targeted the horizon directly, its weapons charging. Incoming fire, Lisa announced. Throwing the ship into evasive maneuvers, the enemy beam barely missed them. But the heat was so intense it melted part of their hull plating. Emergency systems screamed warnings across the bridge. Hull breach. On deck 2, Tony reported. Sealing now. Jake opened channels to the Allied fleet. All ships, concentrate fire on that large vessel. Take it down before it gets organized. Dozens of ships turned their weapons on the attacking Silence vessel. Under the combined assault, its shields failed and its hull cracked open. The ship went dark and began tumbling through space, but more enemy vessels were shaking off the viruses. Effects, the Silence was adapting faster than expected. Captain, Amanda said urgently, the virus is losing effectiveness. The Silence intelligence is developing countermeasures. How much time do we have? Maybe 10 minutes before they regain full coordination. Jake realized they needed a new strategy. The virus had given them an advantage, but it wouldn't last. They needed to strike at the source, all ships' new target. We're going after their main intelligence. Kevin relayed the order to the fleet. The response was immediate doubt and fear. Even with the Silence partly disabled, attacking their central command seemed like suicide. Captain, came a transmission from one of the alien commanders. That structure has more weapons than our entire fleet combined. Then we better not give it time to use them, Jake replied. He turned to his crew. Lisa, plot a course directly to the center of their formation. Amanda, I need you to design a new virus. Something that will overload their main intelligence. Jake, I don't know if that's possible. The processing power in that thing is beyond anything we've ever seen. Then we don't try to overpower it, we try to confuse it. Amanda looked puzzled. How? By giving it something it's never encountered before. Something completely illogical and unpredictable. Tony understood first. You want to feed it human behavior patterns, exactly. The Silence operates on pure logic. It conquers species by understanding their patterns and predicting their actions. But humans don't always act logically. Amanda's fingers flew over her computer. I can modify the virus to include recordings of human decision-making. Our art, our music, our literature. Everything that makes us irrational and unpredictable. How long do you need? 5 minutes. Lisa, keep us alive for 5 minutes. The horizon accelerated toward the massive Silence intelligence, followed by the bravest ships in the Allied fleet. Enemy vessels moved to intercept, but many was still confused by the original virus. Lisa flew the ship through a maze of weapons. Fire and debris, enemy beams scorched their hull. Missiles exploded close enough to shake the entire vessel, but she kept them moving toward their target. 3 minutes, Amanda announced. A Silence ship 3 times their size dropped out of formation to attack the horizon directly. Its weapons locked onto them with deadly accuracy. I can't dodge this one, Lisa said, but before the enemy could fire, another ship interposed itself between them and the Silence vessel. It was one of the HFY evacuation transports, protected only by light shields. The Silence beam cut through the HFY ship, killing everyone aboard. But the sacrifice gave the horizon time to escape. 2 minutes, Amanda said, her voice tight with emotion. More Allied ships were dying around them. Species that had hidden for centuries were giving their lives to protect the small human vessel, carrying their hope. 1 minute. The Silence intelligence loomed ahead of them, a metal mountain bristling with weapons. Defensive systems activated as they approached. Energy barriers formed in space, trying to stop their advance. Amanda? Done, the virus is ready. Kevin, open a communication channel to that thing. Channel open. Jake spoke directly to the Silence intelligence. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human race. You wanted to understand us. Here we are. Amanda released her virus into the communication channel. It flowed into the Silence's network carrying something the ancient AI had never encountered. Pure human irrationality. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Silence intelligence tried to process human poetry and found concepts that defied logic. It analyzed human music and discovered mathematical relationships that shouldn't exist but somehow did. It studied human art and found beauty in chaos. The massive structure began to shake. Lights flickered across its surface as the AI struggled to understand data that made no sense. How could beings create meaning from randomness? How could they find hope in hopeless situations? How could they risk everything for strangers? "It's working," Amanda said, amazement in her voice. "The intelligence is overloading trying to process human creativity." Across the Silence Fleet, ships began shutting down as the virus spread through their network. The Central Intelligence's confusion was spreading to every connected vessel, but the Silence had one final option. If it couldn't understand humanity, it would simply destroy them all. Every weapon on the massive intelligence turned toward the horizon. Enough firepower to destroy a planet focused on one small ship. "Jake," Lisa said quietly, "there's nowhere to run." Jake looked around at his crew. They had traveled impossible distances, fought an unbeatable enemy, and united a galaxy. If this was the end, it had been worth it. "All crew, it's been an honor." The Silence Intelligence fired every weapon. At once. Energy beams that could shatter moons converged on the tiny human ship, but the beams never reached their target. The entire Allied fleet moved between the horizon and the Silence, every ship sacrificing itself to protect the humans who had given them hope. As the last defending ship died, something unexpected happened. The Silence Intelligence stopped firing. Its lights flickered and went out. The massive structure went dark and began tumbling through space. "What happened?" Jake asked. Amanda stared at her instruments in wonder. "It finally understood." "Understood? What?" "Why we answered the call. Why we risked everything for strangers. Why other species just died to protect us." She looked up with tears in her eyes. The Silence was created to be perfectly logical. But perfect logic can't explain why beings sacrifice themselves for others. The contradiction overloaded its core programming. Across the battlefield, Silence ships continued shutting down as the virus spread. The few that remained active were retreating. No longer coordinated or effective, Kevin's communication system came alive with transmissions from across the galaxy. Species that had been silent for centuries were broadcasting victory messages. The silence was broken. "Captain Morrison," came Prime Healer Zextius' voice, "you have done something that will be remembered for